Good day, everyone. My name is Lin Huynh. I'm the founder and host of Fan to Fame. We're here today with former Virginia Tech Hokies standout and 10-year NFL veteran. Please help me welcome Will Montgomery. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing great, Lynn. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I'm a big football team fan, big Redskins fan, so having an opportunity to speak to you is a blessing. I remember watching you, rooting for you, seeing you on Monday night, introducing yourself as one of our players. So this is very cool. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks. And it's still funny, hearing people say that, I'm a football team fan, or, if you want to be, say a joke, oh, which game are you going to this week? The football team. So I'll be personally, I'll be happy whenever they get a new name and stick with it. I know that obviously the Redskins are no longer, but that was the team that I played for. But I kind of do want something besides football team.
I agree with you. But you probably noticed too, when we started winning last year and made it to the playoff, it kind of quieted down a little bit, and it was just focused on the football team and what's going to happen in the future. But once you start losing, all that kind of gravitates back up.
Yeah, well, even when I was there, I know that came up a little bit, the name and everything like that. And then it quieted down. But the era that we're in now, it seems like was ripe for the name change to come back up. But anyway, we don't want to talk about that during this whole podcast.
We'll dive into later for sure. But hey, just jumping into it. So you're from Maine. You went to high school in Centreville, Virginia, which is where I actually live at now. I live in Centreville. Can you just talk about how you got into football?
Yeah, well, I was born in Maine. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a few different places, including Guam, Ohio, and everything else. But around the time I was 5, he kind of settled in Virginia and then finished his Navy career there and transitioned into more of a contractor role. But football to me was sort of an I don't want to say afterthought, but I think 20 plus years ago, kids went outside and they played two-hand touch, whatever. All the games where you tackle somebody and it's called smear. That's something that you can't say right now. But I think growing up, I mean, what am I now? I'm 38. So 30 years ago, I was outside, playing with all the kids. And it wasn't until 7th grade that I actually started playing football, although, playing catch and turkey day football all before then, it was something that we always did. But
right.
I got beat up pretty bad my first couple of years. I remember having bruises all over my forearms. Just because I was hitting like a chicken wing instead of using my hands, kind of using your flipper to hit. So I had a tough intro to football early on, and I was the heavier kid. I was like, I don't know if you remember the movie The Heavyweights, if you ever seen with the pudgy kids are going to that camp in the summer camp. So I was kind of a heavyweight. So as a 7th grader, I was playing with like the 8th and 9th graders. And that was my first year of football. So whenever your first year of football it's sort of a rude awakening. And I was playing with the older kids. So, but I learned, I was a quick learner. But yeah, those first couple of years were tough. No doubt.
Well, I think that all played out playing with the older kids. That grows testament. I mean, despite your size, you got to have that skill level for you to bring you up to play with those kids at that age. But you went on to Virginia Tech to play center, all ACC, freshman all ACC. Those are just some accolades that you garnered there. How was your experience as a Hokie? And did you start off like growing up as a lineman, or how did you progress in the football career up until you went to Tech?
Well, right. I think I kind of progressed based off my size. So when I was a freshman in high school, I weighed about 165.
Oh, wow.
3 years later, as a senior, I weighed 265.
Wow.
So I gained 100 pounds in high school. I think that was also because that's when I started lifting weights really heavy. And I don't think I missed a workout for my freshman year on. I remember those milk commercials where they're like, got milk, and you see like the big, strong athlete or something like that. Well, as the young, fat, pudgy kid, I got made fun of a little bit as the fat kid. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be that fat kid anymore. I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to play sports and running around playing football, basketball, baseball, summer basketball, summer baseball, back into football. I never really had a time off. Mm-hmm. I was literally year round. I don't think I ever had a week off of sports, and I loved it. I loved playing all the different sports. Going playing basketball helped my baseball. playing baseball. I don't know. That was fun. I wish I was a lot better at baseball. That was my favorite sport growing up. But then, just playing even summer basketball into football, my conditioning was always great. So there's always those guys really at all levels that show up the training camp out of shape. I'm like, how can you be out of shape? Well, I guess they weren't running the courts playing summer basketball. So I never had an opportunity to get out of shape. At Virginia Tech, my sister went to Virginia Tech.
Okay.
So she is 4 years older than me, and she was going there the Mike Vick era. So it was obviously that was when Virginia Tech really, got on the national stage. They played Florida State in the national championship. I was watching that. Everywhere you look, it was about Virginia Tech. So in high school, I was playing well, playing offensive line and defensive line, like you were saying. Like I was saying, since I gained like 100 pounds, okay, you're definitely O-line and D-line. I figured, hey, I want to go where my sister's going. That looks like that's a spot. They got guys like Mike Vick. They're on the national stage. So yeah, it was O-line and D-line for me all the way.
I think when you think about Virginia Tech, I'm a big Tech fan. I went to Radford University, which is about 20 minutes down the road, and we didn't have a football team, so we rooted for Tech in every sports. But I think even folks who are not a Tech fan or from Virginia, when they think of Tech football, they think about Michael Vick, they think about the Sandman as your intro. How's that feeling coming out? I remember when I watched it this year, the first game, with college football pretty much being fanless, just like any other sport. Watching this year, when I saw that, just the players coming out of the tunnel, all those fans jumping. How is that feeling coming out and the experience of that? Because that's different from any team in the country.
No, it still gives me goosebumps. And I know Virginia Tech only has 65, 70,000 fans, whatever it is. But the way the stands are, they're kind of vertical, so that noise stays right on top of you, and it's actually louder than a lot of stadiums that have 100,000, because some of those stadiums that are wide open, they don't hold the sound. But Virginia Tech is right on top of you,
right?
And I definitely remember more than a handful of games when I was one of the flag carriers, so I led the team out. So it's definitely, especially for a night game, there's the fireworks, there's the inner Sandman, you're coming out, you have 70,000 fans roaring. So every time I listen to it still and watch it, I get goosebumps.
Yeah, I bet. It definitely gives me the goosebumps just even watching. Frank Beamer, I mean, when you think about Hokie football, that's another name that pops up. He's a legend, not only at Virginia Tech, but for college football. What did Frank Beamer mean to you? And could you maybe share some stories about Frank, maybe your recruiting process or your time there?
Yeah, I remember in high school, I was just at my house playing ping pong or something with some buddies, and my mom was like, "Hey, Will, you got to take a call. It's Coach Beamer on the line." So I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll take this call." No, but it was something else. I wasn't super highly recruited at a high school. I had 2 offers to Richmond and William and Mary. I also could have gone to some of the Ivy Leagues, like Brown, Yale. I could have gone to Georgetown. I could have gone to Army. I had a halfway decent GPA in SATs and was still slightly undersized. If you think O-line, 6'3", 265, just based off of stats, doesn't seem like that's the height and weight that you want. But I was playing basketball all winter and summer and everything else. So I thought that was a pretty good weight myself. But hey, my sister went there, so we won states my senior year of high school. So we went all the way through the playoffs. So guess what? During the playoffs and during the regular season, I played against a bunch of guys Virginia Tech had offered scholarships to, like a Jimmy Martin, who played O-line for us, like a Jonathan Lewis and his older brother, Kevin Lewis, played at Virginia Tech. I played against Daryl Tapp in the state championship game, and D'Angelo Hall and James Anderson and Chris Clifton.
Right.
So they go, "Oh, wait a minute. This guy can block Jonathan Lewis. This guy can block Jimmy Martin. This guy can block Daryl Tapp. We better at least offer him a preferred walk-on."
Right.
So, thankfully my, parents, through my dad in the military, we were kind of in a weird situation where we saved a little bit of money for it, but it didn't quite qualify for financial aid. So we're like, well, should I take the scholarships or walk on to Tech and see what happens? But they were fortunate to allow me to walk on to Tech. And then after 1 year, I earned a scholarship. So that, that's
Wow.
thankful that worked out.
I didn't know you were walk on there. That's even more of an inspiration. What was your mindset during that season, knowing that you're a walk on, and then to get the scholarship? You had to done something right. So what was that mindset?
Well, I think it's just showing up every day with a chip on your shoulder. At the end of the day, like day one, I almost thought, hey, I don't want to say I don't care if football doesn't work out, but I
Right,
almost wanted to go there because like my sister went there. It was a
right,
cool school to go to, and everything else. So I hoped football worked out. I was gonna, bust my butt to make sure and hit the weight room, be in shape, do everything that I can control. So what can I control? I can study the playbook. I can be in the best conditioning shape I can be in. I can lift the weights. I cannot make a mental mistake. I cannot jump off sides. There's so many things. You're going
right,
to get beat. The other guy is going to, make a play on you. That's just the nature of the game. But don't make a play on myself.
right.
So I wanted to make sure I handled all the small things, and then just keep having those add up. Hit the weight room and everything else. And then at the end of the day, I was just making plays, and they saw I could produce, so they put me on scholarship.
That's awesome. That's big inspiration and motivation for anyone. I think a lot of folks, if you're on a scholarship, sometimes folks take it for granted, or if you or walk on, some people are pushed by it, but then some people are just complacent, just saying, "Hey, I'm happy just to be here." And you were the opposite from that, so that's very cool to hear. Jumping from college to pro, so you came in as a walk on at Tech, but ended up getting drafted in the pros by the Panthers. Your stint there was about a year long. Probably wasn't as long as you probably had anticipated, but you had a 10-year career. So again, you learned something and something went right. What did you learn from that experience being at Carolina that eventually fulfilled you to a 10-year career in NFL?
Well, I feel like I was that walk on all over again, because as a seventh rounder, I was a handful of picks away from being a free agent. So basically, if you look at the NFL draft and who makes the teams, basically first rounders through third or fourth rounders make the team. Fifth, sixth, and seventh rounders can and do get cut. I remember in my rookie symposium, which I don't know if they have that anymore, but Charlie Casserly addressed us. All the rookies in the NFL who got drafted, went to the same symposium. And he says, man, every year in the first round, there's like whatever it is, 10 to 12 busts. Every year in the seventh
Right.
round, there's 10 players that go on to play 10 years or whatever the stat is. I can't tell you why those first rounders are busts, and I can't tell you why those seventh rounders have success stories. But if you're in the seventh round, hey, be that stat, be that guy that goes on and has that 10-year career, because you can do it. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And another guy, Dan Henning, who was the offensive coordinator in Carolina my rookie year, who he had, he coached with the Redskins also during some of their Super Bowl days. But he says, hey, where you were drafted also kind of depends on your mom and your dad, because they want to draft size. They want to draft the 6'7" O lineman. They want to draft
Right.
the receiver that runs a 4.3. They want to, so they still are drafting mostly on measurables in the first and second round.
Right.
So regardless of ability, if you're a 6'3", 300-pound O lineman, that doesn't exactly jump off. That's not exactly a measurable that people want. That's still marginally short for NFL standards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there might be a handful of guys in the O line at 6'2" that play, center or something like that, but generally speaking, you still want those 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guys. So my arm length was on the shorter end, my height was on the shorter end. So I still sort of had an uphill battle as far as measurables go. So I got in there, I had a handful of starts my rookie year. I had some of my ups and some downs. I remember my first career NFL start was week 2 in my rookie year. And we were playing at Minnesota against the Vikings, and it was the Williams brothers, Kevin Williams and Pat Williams. And guess what? They were both Pro Bowlers. So my first ever career NFL start was in Minnesota, in the Dome, hearing the Vikings horn against 2 Pro Bowlers. Let's just say I was not starting the next week. But I got in and out. I got some spot duty. I actually got about 4 starts my rookie year with ups and downs, and had enough where, the next year they drafted Ryan Khalil, who was a first rounder out of USC.
Right.
And he went on to have a multi-year Pro Bowl career himself. So then that kind of bumped me out of there, but I still had good film to go on to the next season.
Absolutely. I think you hit on it. I think any opportunity you get is about having film. So I've heard that from a lot of folks I've spoken to. Is like, as long as you have some film on you, you can find a place somewhere. So with that being said, you went on to New York Jets, played with Denver, played at Chicago, and then my favorite, the Washington Redskins. Even though you weren't born here, being from the area, did you root for the Redskins? And how was that experience playing for a team close to home?
And yeah, it was great. I definitely grew up rooting for the Redskins, living in Virginia since I was 5. I remember, the seat cushion era when in the early 90s or late 80s, beating Atlanta or somebody. There was like 100,000 fans at RFK throwing their seat cushion or whatever it was. And growing up, in the area and in Centreville, like, I think you mentioned that you live now.
Yeah.
One of my youth league coaches was Donnie Warren, tight end Donnie Warren, part of the Hogs. Mm-hmm. So his oldest son played with me on, Little League baseball and football and everything else. So growing up with one of the quote unquote Hogs being my coach was pretty awesome. In my senior year, we also had a guy named Coach Jeff Ulinek, who he was one of the extras in Ace Ventura Pet Detective, one of the guys in the urinal stall. So my senior year, we actually had 2, we had an NFL tight end and an NFL center helping the staff my senior year of high school. So that was pretty cool. But Jeff Ulinek also played for the Redskins.
Okay. Yeah.
So I definitely grew up a diehard Redskin fan. So being able to play with them, and when I got the call that I was going to be joining the Redskins, I was like, pumped, excited, let's do this. But, even then, there were some ups and downs on that. It was, I think I remember the game. So at the time, the Jets had released me a handful of weeks earlier. So I was on the street. So I was going from team to team to do some tryouts because, as you can imagine, there's a 53-man roster, there's a practice squad, but there's still some guys in limbo who are good enough to be on teams but hadn't signed yet. And so there's almost like that next 5 to 10 guys times there's almost like 300 guys sort of doing the workout circuit who aren't on a team necessarily. So for a short period of time, I was one of those guys. And then the Redskins had a game against the Ravens where like 3 guys got hurt, like Jansen, Samuels, like I forget the right guard's name at the time. The torn triceps. Okay, we got to sign like lots of guys. So they brought me in with Coach Zorn. I finished the last couple games of that season of 2008, and then I had Zorn in 2009. And I still had my ups and downs with some starts there as well. And then my career really took off with the Shanahan era,
which was a very exciting time. I always joke with my friends. We weren't old enough to watch the glory days. And so every time I see that, I was like, that sounds good and all. That sounds great and all. But I want to see something now. So I remember 2012 season with RG3. Despite it being not long lasting, that was very exciting for me. And you're definitely part of that team. Speaking of RG3, what's your memories of him?
Well, I think really just that first game of the season against New Orleans. That was a big one. We really hadn't shown our little pistol shotgun offense a whole lot in preseason. We were doing a lot of under center stuff and a lot of typical zone stuff. So we kind of saved some of those bullets for the first game against New Orleans and at, playing Drew Brees and everything else. And it was a monumental underdog that game. And, we came out, I think we only passed the ball like 15 times the entire game. We were running the ball. We were running play action. Right. I think, Robert hit, it was either Garcon or somebody for that huge touchdown pass over the middle. Mm-hmm. So just that first game, it was just awesome winning, against Drew Brees. And then from there on out, it was just, that team was a special team, but, with him, with Alfred Morris that year was the second leading rusher in the league behind Adrian Peterson. The O-line we had that year with a bunch of underdogs, basically, with, Columbus, who's a guy that's been cut multiple times, Chester, well, actually, he's not necessarily an underdog, but myself, I had some ups and downs in the league. Lickensteiger, was the ups and downs in the league, been on multiple teams. So I guess the Oklahoma boys, Trent Williams and Chester, were more of the first and second round type guys, filled in with some journeymen with, Alfred Morris, leading the way. So that was a fun year.
That's really cool. So you spoke about the memorable time in 2012. Being a Redskins fan, what was your most memorable time growing up watching the Redskins? Anything pop out to you, or any players that you really root for?
Yeah, I mean, just, the O-line from back then, like Jim Lachey, Bostic, which, funny enough, I actually just ran into Bostic this past weekend. I went to the Redskins alumni game. So I was talking to Bostic in the tunnel. But, Jim Lachey, my coach, Donnie Warren, is the tight end growing up. All the guys from that O-line, I grew up watching them, and, I have some of their playing cards, Joe Jacoby. So all those guys was definitely the era that I was watching growing up. So, it's fun to see those guys now as well.
You came in as 7th round pick, and I think you spent about a year or two in different teams. And then you came to Redskins and was here for about 5 years. By that time, what do you think helped with your duration of staying with the team for that amount of time? What did you learn through that period, or why was Redskins such a good fit for you?
Well, I don't know if you read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell, but he talks about the rule of 10,000 hours. So basically, when you do something, it takes you 10,000 hours to become an expert at it. And what is that? That's almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So basically, once you've done something, 5 days a week for 10 years, you've seen about every scenario, you've done about every scenario, you are now considered an expert at it. So I think I was still just learning the game. So, you take the end of my high school career, which just starting to get competitive. You take my college career in my first 5 years of the pros. So that's really your 10,000 hours where I've gone through and screwed everything up about as much as you can screw it up. And they haven't kicked me out of the league yet. So I'm learning, I'm fine tuning, I'm healthy. I'm big, I'm strong, I'm fast. So that was a sweet spot, about year 5, year 6, year 7, where I was really playing the best, and I know people can sometimes criticize Pro Football Focus, but that 2012 season, they were ranked me the number 5 center in the league that year. So I was feeling good. I was smart. I was knowing what was going on. My body was healthy. And then, 2013, I sprained the ankle week 1. I sprained the knee week 4. Week 8 that season, I tear a ligament in my wrist. So in 2013, I was playing all hobbled up, and we thought that my wrist, it was just a sprain, but I played with a cast on my wrist for half a season. So then after the season, we did an MRI and x-ray on it. Turns out I tore a major ligament in my wrist that I needed surgery on, that I played through the entire season. So I was basically played 2013 all hobbled in half the season with one arm. So then, unfortunately, that was my exit from the Redskins, because they didn't think I could play anymore with a damaged wrist, and I actually ended up getting 3 bones fused together in my wrist. So they're like, okay, Montgomery's done, and unfortunately, that is the reality of the NFL.
Right.
Is in some regards, it's a meat market, and if you ever, I don't think you've been to the combine, but you see them walking around, all the players in their underwear, and
right,
the height and the weight. It is a cattle. It is a business. When I was with the Jets, talking about the bad parts of the business, I remember going out to pre-practice one time, seeing somebody with a camera filming us doing warm-ups. I'm like, why is that guy filming us doing warm-ups? I come to find out later from a veteran that little Johnny over here, it's in preseason. They didn't want to have to pay him a severance package, so they got him healthy enough just to go through pregame warmups, and then they cut him afterwards, but they got him on film running over the hurdles. So you learn pretty quick it's a nasty business, and it is a business. Right. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent right now, but I know sometimes fans and whoever else in the media are, why is this player taking this money or that money, or why aren't they staying loyal to the team? Well, there has never been a team that stays loyal to the player, especially when they get hurt. Right. Or, there's plenty of cases where the team dumps the player early. So occasionally when a player, let's even say Kirk, when Kirk got the first 100% guaranteed contract to go play at Minnesota, I was his biggest cheerleader. I mean, you don't get 100% guaranteed contracts in the NFL like you do in baseball or basketball,
Right.
because there is a 100% chance of injury. You know, the NFL Players Association came in and talked to us a couple of times. Like, in this line of work, there's a 100% chance of injury. So, you know, basically thinking of the end while you're in it, make sure you got the workman's comp, make sure you know this injury, you know, protocol and everything else. So it really is a business.
That's true. That's one thing folks got to remember. It is a business for sure. You know, despite what the Redskins did, one man's, you know, trash is another man's treasure. You went on to play for the Denver Broncos, and you played with the Hall of Famer Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks ever. As a center, you probably engaged with him the most probably out of any player. How was that experience work playing with Peyton Manning, and any good stories of Peyton?
Yeah, no, playing with Peyton was awesome. You know, before I went there, one of the coaches says, you know, you're going to hate Peyton Monday through Friday, but you're going to love him on Sundays because, you know, he is a perfectionist. He does hold people accountable. There was during the off season, the OTAs, the organized team activities, you know, we had a rookie, he checked like a quick screen or something, and the rookie receiver at the time didn't get the check and ran a deep route. So he dirted the ball, and he's like, get this MF and rookie off the field. Give me somebody that knows the dang playbook. So everybody's like, okay, like, coach is like, all right, somebody else get in there. It's like, what are we going to tell Peyton Manning what to do? But, you know, so that was the year when I was coming off my wrist surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, even the start to that season, I had to sign a waiver on my wrist. You know, if I got injured in preseason, then I wouldn't get paid any money. But, you know, my wrist held up and got healthy enough to the point where midseason I was the starter, which I always knew would be the case. So then Peyton's going through his Rolodex of snap counts and cadences. And, you know, everybody likes to talk about the Omaha, but there's a bazillion other things.
Right.
Uncovered receiver, yellow. So, you know, anytime he says yellow, that means snap the ball next because nobody's covering the receiver. You know, what does Omaha mean? Omaha basically means Simon says go. So he can say any kind of bullshit that he wants. He's basically just trying to get a key on the defense. So a lot of times NFL defenses will show you one thing but move to the second thing. So they'll try to roll a safety down. They'll try to, you know, bump a linebacker over. They'll start in a press man coverage, you know, go back to zone or whatever it is. So if he can wait and play that cat and mouse game long enough to see what they're actually in, then we can get in a perfect play. You know, so it's not always him throwing the ball. It's him checking to a run. It's, you know, running right, running left, doing the quick screen, throwing it deep. It's being in the perfect play against the defense every play. So that's a lot of times with the Omaha, man. And sometimes you'd have to even protect the Omaha with a fake Omaha. So there's something that we use called ice cream. You know, if you gave us a flavor of ice cream, like vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, we would go to the line of scrimmage, no play until, you know, he came back with an Omaha or some sort of a check. But he'd be up there for 20 seconds just spitting out bullshit and then finally circle back to the play. And then finally, another good story is he's the only quarterback I've had that actually had the backup quarterback scout the TV copy. So on the TV copy of the game, you can hear some of the checks. So for an example, Buffalo has an L in it, and Badger has an R in it. So Buffalo and Badger is our inside zone left or inside zone right. You know, you're a little small, you know, root hog of an animal. So Badger means inside zone right. Buffalo means inside zone left. Well, on the TV copy, you can hear him checking the Badger, and you can see us running inside zone. He's like, okay, this next week we need to use a dummy audible for Badger. So the following week against whatever team, in the huddle, he says, okay, guys, disregard the audible. We're going to run the naked bootleg play, but disregard the audible. So we get to the line, He's Badger, Badger, Badger. But he told us to disregard the audible.
Yeah, right.
So we're still running the bootleg play. The other team says, oh, Badger, Badger, zone this way, zone this way. He fakes the handoff. Linebackers, everybody comes downhill. He's booting him out the back door. Tight end's wide open. Touchdown.
That is so cool.
So he will actually, scout the TV copy on himself and then use that as the dummy audible the following week.
That is awesome. That is some good inside scoop right there. If Peyton Manning ever gets back on the field, we know exactly what he's doing now. We just got the key to the code.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, I think you kind of hit on it. I think you, probably all the other players, they probably understand it, but you always see the quarterback always directing the receiver, running back. This is where you stand up for a play. But the lineman, you guys got to know each and every single play what exactly to do. What's for your as a lineman, as a center who has the ball before any play gets snapped? What's the importance of the linemen? Because you always hear about the running backs and receivers, but you guys are the front and center. If there was no linemen blocking, you wouldn't be running the ball. You had no one blocking the quarterback. So, what from your definition, how important is the lineman position? How is it overlooked?
Well, right. Well, especially the center spot, we definitely control who to block. So
Right.
I joke with people, can they count to three? If you can count to three, you can play center. Because generally speaking, there's three linebackers in the box. If you're in your base personnel, which base personnel means you probably have a tight end and a fullback in. So you have roughly 7 blockers, 7 big guys, 3 receivers. So that means the defense is going to have at least 7 guys in the box. Normally 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers. So count to 3. There's a Sam linebacker, which means the strong linebacker. There's the Mike linebacker, which means the middle linebacker.
Right.
And there's the Will linebacker, which means the weak linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes, you have a tight end front side. I'll give him the Sam, and the center will take the Mike. So I can count to 2. 1, 2. I have number 2. So I say, okay, Mike's 55. Line or something like that. I'm letting my guards know which way I'm going. So if I have the middle one, the tight end knows he has 1 more over. Well, what happens if they bump a safety down front side? So really my count just changed because now my Mike is number 3. So I got to go back to number 2. So I'm going to have the safety be number 1. I'm going to count the Sam as number 2. So now I'm going to call out the Sam backer. So I have the Sam backer. Now the tight end says, okay, the center has the Sam. I'm going to bump out here and get the safety. That's even telling the backside people, okay, the center is going all the way here to Sam. Now I got to go to the Mike, who's actually number 3. He was number 2. So sometimes you go based on the call. Sometimes you go plus or minus the call. Then that's also why we want to know what the defense is in. So a lot of times they'll bring a safety down late for strong or weak, or sometimes they'll move the backers out in the middle and they'll roll a safety down in the middle. So sometimes, it really is a big cat and mouse game where we're trying to get things set up schematically and the defense is always trying to screw us.
Dad, you just showed why you're eligible to go to Ivy League. Because that was a lot to intake, but that just shows how important the lineman position is. And again, when people say it's not the sexy position you hear that everyone wants to play, but it's the most important in my opinion. If you guys don't have the lineman, the big guys like you guys taking care of things.
Well, especially the smartest guys play O-line. The D-line, they just tell them to go, get the ball. That's about it.
That was going to lead me to some fun facts now. Who was the hardest guy to block? Anyone stand out?
Yeah, I mean, a couple who are actually still playing. But Ndamukong Suh was a hard one.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron Donald was a hard one.
Yeah.
Who he's doing pretty well for himself. I played against, it's funny, this is a funny one, Hainsworth, when he wanted to, which wasn't often, he turned those handful of plays. He earned his $100 million contract on a couple of plays. So occasionally in practice, when you got pissed off, he could really turn it up and he was impossible to block. I mean, there's another one, Chris Jenkins. Yep. He was in the running to be NFL MVP, defensive MVP a couple of years. So those would be my top 4 right there.
Those are some pretty good ones. And I like how you played that joke about Hainsworth when he wanted to. So nowadays you see a lot of jersey swapping, whether it be NBA or the NFL. If you had to swap a jersey back when you played or even today's game, who'd you swap it with?
Who would I swap it with? I don't know, probably big other fat, ugly old lineman. So, you know, it's because, you know, the O-line is a brother and we like to make fat jokes. And it's funny, I'm not so fat anymore. I've lost about 80 pounds. So
Yeah, you have.
my wife doesn't like me making fat jokes to people. I was like, hey, babe, I've been 300 pounds for like 15 years. I can still make fat jokes. But, you know, just fill up the wall with all the best O-line jerseys.
Right.
You know, my rookie year, I played with a guy named Jordan Gross, who was a Pro Bowl guy, and Mike Wall. You know, I wouldn't mind having their jerseys. You know, some other guys. I'm trying to think of the Joe Thomas would be a jersey I would like. So, you know, all the best O linemen out there, I wouldn't mind having their jerseys.
I like that. That's brotherhood right there. I like
Yeah.
that.
That's right.
No, that's cool. I actually was going to ask you about that, your weight loss. If anyone knew who you were, I remember when you played, you were a big guy. You said you're a big guy growing up. Even when you Google you, you see, it looks like two different people.
Yeah.
What was the motivation for the lost weight? Is this your normal size? You always said you're a bigger guy, but I kind of always underweight. But was the weight off for football? And then when football was over, this is your actual weight? Or what was the motivation for it?
Well, it was a full-time job keeping the weight on, you know, lifting heavy, eating a lot. I mean, I don't know how many calories I burned, you know, between just lifting weights and practice and conditioning. And, you know, I'm sure somebody has a calculator somewhere that could figure that out. But it was, my jaw was sore as much as I had to eat to keep the weight on. And it wasn't all healthy food. It was occasionally some pizza and wings and beer to, you know, keep the weight on. You know, when I got done playing, you know, I don't know if I mentioned or not, but my last season in Chicago, I broke and dislocated my ankle. And that was followed by, you know, with the Redskins, I mentioned some injuries. So, yeah, I told you about the wrist, but I also sprained my knee several times with the Redskins. I sprained my knee also in Denver. It's the MCL. So, you know, basically, I also had a hip. I don't want to say a hip injury, but I found out several years ago when I exited the NFL, there was one last brain and body examination at the University of North Carolina. I went down there for 3 days. You know, my hip has a little pinch on it, you know, some sort of a little tag, a little bone spur or something. So between my ankle, my knees, my hips, you know, and everything else, I needed to get that weight off my lower body. And what I was finding out from my physical therapist is every 1 pound of body weight is like, you know, 2 or 3 pounds of torque on your lower extremities. So, you know, losing 80 pounds is really like losing 240 pounds off your ankle.
Yeah.
And then if you're running or doing anything explosive, that's more like 8 times, you know, the force. So I really wanted to get that weight off. And then, you know, as we talk about banging your head against the concrete wall for 20 years, I don't know how good for brain health that is. So I think just getting heart health is brain health and everything else. So, you know, I wanted to get all the weight off, and, you know, for my ligaments, for my bones, for my ankles and knees and hips, and, you know, for brain health as well. Just wanted to be as healthy as I can be at this point. Now that I just sort of attacked that monster.
Do you find it difficult to maintain your weight now?
No, I mean, I have, you know, I ebb and flow 15 pounds or so here and there. I think I did, you know, my Washington Post article a few years ago. I got down to like 225, and, you know, I had the yearly physical, which, you know, I think my everyday walking around weight's like 230. After Thanksgiving, it made tip 240.
That's all of us.
So, but I mean, once I hit 240, I kind of put the governor switch on. And, you know, go into tighter protocol. But I think generally, without too much thought, I'm sort of in a good routine now. I sort of eat clean Monday through Friday. I still live life on the weekends and, you know, have pizza and beer and wings and all that good stuff. But then, but right back Monday to Friday, I go back and do the good fight to lose my couple pounds. So I put them right back on the weekend.
No, you're awesome.
But I don't let it go. I don't let it go like 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I'm like 15 pounds north of where I'm supposed to be, I do tighten the screw some. Some of my buddies, you know, they go on the yo-yo diet, or they go on a diet. I don't even like to call it a diet. I like to call it a lifestyle. I mean, just, you know, eat whole foods, you know, ditch some sugar. You can, you know, do the 80-20 thing. Eat good 80% of the time, 20% of the time, live your life.
Right.
But the problem is people fall off that wagon pretty quick, and that 20% flips, and it's kind of like 80% of the time they're eating the bad stuff. So I
Right.
think that, people just need to get off that processed food and that sugar, and just, eat some more whole foods, move your body, get outside, and just, live life.
I like that advice. And you look great, man. You look really good. So
I
keep it up,
appreciate
man.
that. Well, you look trim yourself, so you must be doing something.
Even if I've wanted to gain weight, I don't. It's good or bad, good and bad. That's why I was never a football player like you.
There you go.
But I think nowadays you're into coaching. Again, shout out to TJ Butler, Coach Butler, as you guys probably call him. Went to high school together. He connected us. But can you talk about what are some things you're involved with besides football, and how is life after football? In regards
Yeah,
to
I definitely want to stay involved in the sport, that I know a lot about. The problem that I'm running into, especially with kids, I have a 4-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter, is they're now having activities and gymnastics, and I'm coaching t-ball also right now, and swim and dance and recitals, and I had the opportunity to get into major NFL and college coaching, and some of my local buddies like Daryl Tapp and some of those other guys are coaching in the NFL level. But the problem is then you don't see your own kids. Even at the high school level, if you're doing it right, if you're doing full-time coaching, you can barely see your own kids' sports. I'm like, well, how? Last year, Coach Windows says, "Hey, Will, do you want to coach for me?" I said, "No." He says, "Okay, how about can I get you in a couple of days a week? Get us through individual portion of the practice where we're learning and teaching and all that." I said, "Yes." So I'm kind of coming in. I'm like a part-time coach. I'm coming in a couple of days a week. I'm still be able to mentor and teach the O&D line some skills, and I'm able to make it home for dinner and see t-ball and see gymnastics. So
that's awesome.
A lot of these coaches that are doing it right, they're sacrificing major college, major family time. I'm sort of getting the best of both worlds, where I can kind of get in there, get some camaraderie, get my football juices, and then I can go home and go dinner, and before it gets too dark, maybe throw the ball with my own son and do some of that. But ever since I got out and retired, I did a little bit of radio and TV. I was doing some things on 106.7 The Fan with Grant and Danny. I did some Redskins pregame on Fox 5. I actually worked at Pro Football Focus for a year in grading film, which that was another thing. It's kind of like you don't see the fruits of your labor. I don't know. Just sitting in my basement, watching film, submitting my grade. It was football, but I don't know. It was just like, okay, there's got to be something more than this. I'm missing that human interaction, so that's kind of what led me back to the coaching and being hands-on. And I know Logan Paulson, I know you talked with him, and he's doing some local stuff. He's actually doing some local media down here just at the Redskins practice facility. If I got that gig, I might still be doing that. I got tired of driving down to DC, doing stuff, because the Redskins 106.7 The Fan CBS radio is right there near Nationals Park. So I was driving into DC all the time from Ashburn. Same with the Fox 5 radio was in DC. So that commute wasn't exactly getting easy with young kids trying to get home and see their stuff. So I'm still struggling with that work-life balance, trying to make sure I'm filling up my bucket with football and everything else. And then, through football, there's another local NFL guy named Eddie Mason who runs some gyms and also has some football camps. I was working some camps with Coach Eddie Mason, former Redskin. We brought the kids over to a local business, to help them network and everything else. I was networking myself. I had a cup of coffee with the CEO named Mark Madigan at IT Cadre. It's right here near the Ashburn Home Depot, last stop of the Silver Line of the Metro. Before you know it, he's offering me a job, to kind of be a management consultant, for government contracts and things along those lines. And at the time, I was kind of bouncing around doing different things, wanted a little more flexibility. I was like, sure, I'll try that on. Why not? I have my business information technology degree from Virginia Tech. I said, I got my degree. Let me shine that off a little bit, see if it's so. 3.5 years later, I'm still a management consultant over there at IT Cadre doing, I've done projects for the Air Force, for the Veterans Affairs, for the Department of Education. I'm coaching high school ball, right now. Occasionally I still, talk with some folks on the radio. This past weekend I was at the Redskins alumni game. 2 weekends ago, I went down to the Virginia Tech Hokies game. So I'm just trying to do it all.
You are a busy man, sir. And it's funny that you talk about like management consulting, because I'm a management consultant myself. Probably not a surprise to you. I think when you're from the DC area, you live here, you're either a government employee or you're a contractor. There's a good chance of that. So we'll definitely have to talk offline and actually support the DoD. So I know your father was part of the military. So
right, no doubt.
Much respect, and definitely big culture and something I pretty much live my life around. You've done a lot. What are your future plans? Is there future plans as your kids get older, maybe to go into college football or NFL one day to be a coach?
I think my door is always just kind of wide open. My wife is actually getting her master's degree, to become a counselor. So I'm supporting her doing that right now. So I think, for the short term, I don't see any major changes. As my kids get older, a little more independent, and I don't want to, talk about when I'm an empty nester at this point because my kids are 6 and 4. But I think I'm a free agent again when the kids leave the house. So
right.
I know the Redskins, facilities here in Ashburn. I still have some connections there.
Right.
I know the NFL Players Association is in downtown DC. I still have connections there. But that commute starts to hit back a little bit.
Yeah.
If I really wanted to be a transplant, and I still hopefully don't forget everything I ever knew. I talk about NFL coaches. I mean, from that 2012 team, there's about 5 head coaches from that squad alone. And you talk about Sean McVay, you talk about Matt LaFleur,
right,
Kyle Shanahan, and some of my other assistants who are at other NFL clubs.
Right.
So, I mean, I have people on my phone from about 10 NFL clubs right now who I think I could make a call and at least get on and do an internship or a summer thing or be a quality control and work my way up that way. So I think, unless I don't forget everything I ever knew, in the next 10 or so years, something like that might be an option as well. But then again, that's where we get back with the work-life balance. As much as you like football, is it enough to like 80 hours a week? Because then you have no family life. So that's sort of the big thing that, with high school, you're able to do that. You're able to get in, you're able to get out. Even for the full-time coaches, they're busy as heck during the season, but it's a 10-week season and you're done with regular season, by Thanksgiving. If you go to the States, that's December, but still that's more manageable than the college or pro season. So I'm just talking myself in circles right now. So who knows? I know staying involved with football, whether it's a high school, college, pro, or the media, or scouting, or in some regard, is going to be my future.
Future is limitless for you, sir. There's a lot of stuff you've done as a player. You know a lot of connections, which I think that's one of the most important thing, if not the most important thing in any type of business. So I'm definitely gonna. Don't forget us when you win a Super Bowl one day as a coach of the NFL team or in college winning a national championship. So I definitely see that in the near future. But last question. Again, you have a lot of experience, whether it be playing, coaching, at a high level of college. What are some things you share advice for young athletes, and then you share for someone to go in the NFL that just made it to the NFL, and you could give them advice of how they can, work on their career and what to expect?
Well, one, I would say, is follow your passion, whether that's football, whether that's piano, whether that's music, whether that's being a scientist. Do whatever it is you like to do. The best plumber out there loves plumbing. The best you fill in the blank loves what you're doing. So I think regardless of pay, which is easy to say, do whatever it is that you like to do. And if that happens to be football, then guess what? Control what you can't control. Like I talked about earlier, be in the best conditioning shape, hit the weight room, study your opponent, even do, study the best players at your position. So for an example, if you play O-line, get 4 or 5 of the Pro Bowlers who play your position, see how they do it. If you're a podcaster like yourself, Subscribe to the 5 best podcasters. See how they do it. How do they do their transition? What do they talk about? Are they asking scripted questions or is it more conversational?
Right.
I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, and you listen to Howard Stern. It doesn't even seem like they're asking questions. Everything flows like a conversation,
Right.
magically. So how do they do those transitions? How do they talk about that? So I think whatever it is, every single day you're getting better because you love it and you control what you can't control, and you can't help but get better and become an expert at it.
Right.
And then when you get your 10,000 hours in and you're an expert, now people are going to pay and subscribe to you no matter what, because you are an expert.
Good advice. And I'm taking notes myself. So I appreciate that. Well, I don't want to take too much time today. I know you have young children. I know, like you said, work-life balance, spend time with family outside of work is very important to you, important to me myself. So I just want to say thank you very much for all the nuggets you shared. But before we wrap up, any final comments that you'd like to share for close up?
No, just enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. I'll be interested in checking out some of your other podcasts and everything else.